places in the world, to explore them with my own eyes. I think, you know, we're planning to have Mr. Brad Henderson from Western speak anyway, so
Yeah.
I think we'll probably be a little limited, since it wasn't an agenda item, on what we can talk about. I mean, I'll let the experts deal with what's legal and what's not, but Brad will be able to answer some of your questions.
So my question is, and Chairman, we had this discussion, but it does need to go on the agenda for next month's meeting.
Absolutely.
However, and it can be on, that discussion can be held on, I think it's the 17th, which it would be our December meeting. And
Yep.
I will be unable to attend, so, but it just needs to be on the record that we discuss it at some point.
I agree. We'll definitely put it on the December 17th, and we'll discuss what we've got now. The big issue in reality is we don't have any written agreements yet. So with that understanding that we will discuss the large hangar project under the Air Center Director's status report, any other comments, questions, or concerns about the agenda?
If there are none, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Commissioner Armstrong to approve the agenda as presented with the understanding we will discuss the large hangar project. Do I have a second? I have a second by Commissioner Call. Any further discussion or debate? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, passes 5-0. Next up, the minutes from Thursday, October 15th, 2020 meeting. I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion by Commissioner Burris to approve the minutes of the October 15th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a second? I have a second by Commissioner Call. Any discussion or debate on the minutes from October 15th? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. A yes or aye approves the minutes, a no or nay rejects it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, passes 5-0. All right, first item up. Woo, Mr. Stark.
Okay, hang on, give me just a second, trying to work out a technical detail
Okay.
so we don't lose our participants.
Okay. You gotta love technology.
I know. So the technology is great, except when it doesn't work, right? So they were getting invalid numbers when they were trying to call in.
Oh,
So anyway, wanted to make sure they're calling the right number. Okay, so I will start then.
excuse me.
I must have given them your number.
Sorry about that. I apologize. Reminder, let's silence our cell phones. A little late, but better than late than never.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I know it's been pretty interesting lately with lockdowns and COVID and all that fun stuff. So I hope everybody's doing well and all of yours are doing well. So I don't know if the mayor mentioned it earlier, but there's no legal committee today, so there are no new leases or no renewed leases that are going before the committee or the council this month. So I'll proceed with my department report, start with air service. We have continued to have 2 flights a day to Dallas, as we had back during the summer. If you remember, through September, we dropped to 1, and that dropped our numbers a little bit on the load factor and enplanements. But American restored that second flight through October, and that brought our numbers back to about 64% of the 2019 numbers. So that equates to about 45 to 50% load factor, so the planes are running about half full on average. I am getting reports from people that a lot of the folks that are flying, they're saying, hey man, the plane was full, so that's good news. It seems to me that we're still maybe recovering slowly. And the biggest impediment is what we're all running into now. It's all the restrictions, the travel restrictions and the COVID restrictions.
Scott, if I could interrupt, you said there's currently one flight per day?
No, we're back to two. We had gone to one during September. I'm not sure why American did that, but it dropped our numbers pretty significantly. But we knew that they were coming back to two flights in October, and they did, and we see the same numbers through October as we had in August. So the recovery has, I guess you could say, slowed or at least not sped up. We're back on track of where we were August. I think if we had had two in September, and again, it's my crystal ball that may not work all that well, but we might have been a little bit ahead of where we are now.
So has there been any further developments or conversations regarding how, if they're going to maintain two flights, are they going to adjust that? Or
Let me jump in here.
Sure, I was going to say that's going to be the next part of it.
That's the city had a video conference with representatives of American Airlines on Friday, and we're looking at the options of waiving parking fees to ensure continued air service. Right now, I think it's safe to say we have air service through December without hesitation because it's too late for them to reschedule or cancel December.
It's probably through January. That's what we were talking about last week, that January should be going in about now.
And so we're feeling good, but I'm dancing here a little bit because any contractual arrangement or financial commitment above $60,000 and each month is $54,000. Anything above that has to be approved by the governing body. And not all the council has been briefed on this because we don't have any meetings. And so I'm trying to, with myself and the city manager, trying to reach out to councilors and fill them in. So the city is working on an agreement and giving the city manager authority to negotiate is where we're at right now. I'm very hopeful that I don't think we have anywhere near the problems that anybody else does. No. I think we're in a very good place. I mean, American was very interested in continuing, and they're very interested in continuing to have planes here, and so I think that's where we're at. But we'll have a detailed presentation by December 17th, and hopefully even sooner than that we can send out in an email to all the commissioners. Okay.
So yeah, to put it all in perspective, I kind of talked about it a little bit last month, but as you remember in August, there were 15 cities that were named that American was going to suspend service to. We were one of those. There was us and one other, Stillwater, Oklahoma, that immediately got in touch with American and began negotiations. So American delayed those suspensions for both of us. Stillwater is still working out their agreement. They may be done by now, but they're close. So most likely they're going to work out their agreement and they'll be able to move forward, which was very encouraging for us. That if they're able to move forward with their air service, then we should be expecting the same. But the other piece of that, there were two others that were part of the Essential Air Service program that American could not cancel. Those still have their air service. And then the last 11 have been canceled and continue rolling cancellations every month. They evaluated every month whether they're going to load them or not for the next month. And then there are also 3 more cities in the Northeast that American has abandoned service permanently altogether. So this is a very serious situation, as we had mentioned before. For American, it's life or death for them, and that's the way they consider it. So, the mayor is exactly right in his characterization of our meetings. They've been very positive. It has been very much a partnership type of discussion, so we're very hopeful that we'll come to an agreement that will continue us for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
So flight operations are still down a bit. They're running at 64% of what October 19 was. That also would be attributed to the pandemic and the restrictions. Airliner parking, that has, I don't want to use the word stagnant because it's really not stagnant, but it's similar to if you're pouring water into a cup while you're pouring water out of a cup. That's basically what we have. We have a turnover that's occurring. While we now have, as of yesterday, 507 airliners stored on the airport, those numbers change a little daily, 1 or 2. We get 2 in, we get 2 out, we get 3 in, we get 2 out, that type of thing. They're not really going up quickly like they were before. They're staying more or less right around that 500 number. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we get into the expansion topic later. But the parking revenue is still very good for us. October parking revenues were 360% of what October 19 was. And the landing fees also were doing very well at about 532% of October 19. So those numbers are staying good. Our parking's running 150,000 and up. October was 171,000. That was the 360 number. Projects, there's not a lot active right now. There's a ton of things being planned, as everybody knows. The water towers are probably still the only thing that's really very active right now. They have finished painting the east tower. Looks great if you haven't seen it. Their IT is working on the process of moving over the city-owned radios to the new tower from the old tower so that the old tower can be demolished sometime next summer. And that's pretty much it on projects. With that, I would like to do whatever we have to do with the technical side of things to get Brad Henderson on the phone, and we can click to the next slide. I forgot to grab the clicker, but Brad's with Western LLC. Western will be the developer for the large hangar that we've been talking about for Ascent. With that, I'll just hand it over to Brad.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, guys, I got to apologize. I really wanted to be down there, but they ended up doing a factory tour late last week. And, of course, when you know it, they'd have a coronavirus outbreak. And so I'm quarantining. I don't have it. But anyway, I wish I could be there physically with everybody. I was talking to Scott about 15 minutes before this. Everything was working great. I had LTE and working from the ranch up here in Elbert, Colorado. And just when you know it, all of a sudden it switched to 3G. So I apologize for just being on the phone. But yeah, I'm Brad Henderson. I'm with Western LLC. We're an old school real estate developer, really got focused on aviation back in 1998, 99. We went after an RFP at Bob Adams Field in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, ended up winning it. And I'll just tell you, we've just learned everything the hard way, if you will. Really had to understand NFPA 409, the fire code, how things work, grant assurances, that type of thing. Your 7460s, primary surface, everything. And so we've developed from, Colorado to California, across Texas, currently active at the RDU in North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham, and very excited to be part of this with you guys there in Roswell. If you've been to the website, we actively promote our teammates. We really view the airport as our main partner. Ascent is our secondary partner as our tenant on this project, but we're looking forward to spend a lot of time in Roswell, and Lord willing, this is just the first of many large projects that we're doing with you guys. Real fast, we specialize in basically doing exactly what's happening here. You got a tenant that wants to be at the airport or multiple tenants. We work with the airport to put that deal together. We bring all the financing to the table, and then we turnkey the project. Again, old school design, build, delivery method. I think Scott said he forwarded the plans to everybody where we're currently set, but that's probably the 18th or 19th round with Ascent. They seem very happy with where the plans are at right now. So currently we've received the ground lease from the airport. We've working our way through the NDA and the financial side with Ascent, making sure that everybody's comfortable there, and we are. And so now we're going to start the sublease negotiations with them. So they want to move very rapidly, and so do we. And so I think everything's coming together on our end.
So, questions?
Can you give us any Brad, can you give us some details as to like how many square feet are we looking at, and any other, anything yet that's been pretty much agreed to? Anything like that you can share with us?
Yeah, in fact, again, we can share the plans. I think Scott has them all, so feel free to just forward them around. I don't have them in front of me because of wonderful internet right now, but the hangar's designed for a 777-300 ER, standard range. Basically they want to be able to go in and take these things apart, redo, change engines, that type of thing in there. So yeah, it's a large hangar with attached office. We had a 2-story office for a while. But a sense that, hey, we'd rather pull down the numbers and get back within the budget we need to be at. And so we went to a 1-story office. So Scott, if you can, maybe you can forward those around everybody after the meeting so you can take a look at them. Again, we view this as just the, concept right now. It'll continue to get fine-tuned, and we're open book and total transparency. So we'll be more than glad to take everybody through the plans as they evolve, and definitely as we're constructing the project.
Now, Brad, the city manager and I have talked about this, and he's anticipating 2 agreements between the city and Western. One would be basically to cover the construction project, what's expected, who does what during the construction phase. The other one would be the long-term land lease that the that the hangar and parking area, et cetera, would be sitting on. Does that sound right to you?
It does, correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, folks?
And guys, I did just get the plan open, so I'm going to again apologize for technical difficulties. We're looking at about almost 72,000 square foot hangar, and then we've got attached about another 13,000 square feet of office.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, parking lot, more ramp, and bringing everything in. And again, Scott, send those around to everybody if they want to take a look at them.
Okay. Fair enough.
I just have one quick question. Brad, do you work directly with the city or with Ascent or both?
Both. So we come in, and again, this is one where you've got a tenant that wants, doesn't want to put their own capital into it. So we specialize in those facilities, design, build, and lease back, basically a built to suit and a lease back to them. So we work with both. And so we would enter into the ground lease with the city. And so we'd be the developer and the owner of the improvements, leasing the ground from the airport. And then we turn around and sublease that facility to Ascent and the end user.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and so guys, definitely as other people come, prospective tenants, and they're looking for this, especially, I know your economic development group knows this because we've worked with them for several years now. This is just the first deal, I think, that's coming together, praise God. But if you get users like this, that you want to get to your airport, they'd be great employers, they'd be great people for the community. But again, they want to put their capital into hiring people and equipment and that type of thing, and they would really like to have a facility built to suit for them, exactly to meet their needs, and then lease back to them. Please count us as a tool in you guys' toolkit to do that and attract those type of people in those businesses.
I have one more question with respect to the numbers that you come up with for the ground lease. Who establishes those numbers?
The airport does, and Scott, I think we've kind of discussed it a couple times. I view the ground lease as it's a pass through from us to the tenant. We don't mark it up unless we need to for some reason. If all of a sudden there's a bunch of extra work we have to do in there, but we try to just pass it through, and that's really how you guys compete with other airports. So that's something that you guys will come up with. Tell us what it is, and we'll work with it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Anything? I think we're looking at around 7 cents a square foot, at least at the beginning. Is that correct?
We had thrown a range out there of 7 cents to 10 cents, and we haven't settled on a hard number yet.
Okay, I didn't think so. So it's still being worked on.
Yep.
And then is there an inflation adjustment or
Yes.
a cost of living adjustment. That's also being discussed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, that's all still in the negotiations right now.
So we got a ways to go.
It'll be, other than the difference of the sublease with Ascent, this lease will not be very much different really from any other land lease that we have. But that'll really be the biggest difference, is that the main user of the building is a subtenant of our tenant, Western. And so we'll want to capture in that lease how that works and make sure there's a good understanding of it. And Brad's well aware of that.
And I think we've talked about one of the concerns I hear from council members is we don't want another bus plant situation.
Right.
I don't see that anywhere, shape, or form in this type of environment, because the hangars are hangars. And but that's got to be in some way addressed and worked out with.
Yeah, I think it does, and Brad can speak to this really well because they do this all over in, the country and other airports and stuff. But this model of operation of the leasing and subleasing with the developer is probably a safer type of situation than what we had with leasing to the owner of the building, simply because Brad's company is in this to make money. So
Yes.
That building sits empty. They're paying the payment to us still. So we continue to get our payment, and they're motivated by normal economics to get someone in that building. And as the mayor mentioned, it's a hangar. There will be a demand. So no, I don't think it's quite the same risk. And Brad, would you like to add anything to that?
Scott, you did a great job. I mean, we are on the hook to make that lease payment to you. We're going to have a lot of money tied up in this thing. I mean, right now we're looking at around $25 million all in on this thing. So yeah, we're going to be big time incentivized to keep it full and keep somebody paying it. So we're going to do everything we can to wrap up Ascent really tight to make sure they can't that they're going to have to make those payments and they can't get out of this. And at the same time, I'll say that our financial group has got us making sure we design this thing to where it's built specifically for Ascent. But yeah, Scott, you nailed it. If they were to, God forbid something happened, they moved out, we've still got a very nice hangar here that we feel good about the airport, because that's really what it boils down to is are there other customers that would want to be in Roswell that would want to be in this hangar? And we feel very good about that. So again, want to pat you guys and your whole team on the back for a very special airport. I told Scott this before, you guys truly understand where you fit in your niche. And you're going after it. So we can all joke about some properly placed billboards that Scott and I've talked about around the country, but we feel comfortable about it. And again, it's a hangar, and we have to make those payments no matter what. And so yeah, we want to keep it full, and we will.
I have another question. You had mentioned the hangar size is 72,000, and then in addition to that 13,000 of office space. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. Yes, sir.
Is the office portion, is it tied directly to the hangar, or is it a separate building?
It's attached to the side, and again, after this meeting, if Scott could forward the plans around, you could see exactly what we're talking about. Basically, kind of behind the door pocket, and we kind of ran it along that side, so it's attached office.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councilor, Commissioner Kunkel.
Scott Riley had mentioned earlier in reference to the site. And I know that we've got some leases out there that we've just got building such and such on the lease. And it's typical, if you're going to have a site, especially this one, which is going to be huge, it's typical that we end up in the business community having a survey done.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the status on the survey?
So Brad maybe will speak to a little more than that, but we're in the process now of working through the Alta survey. I'm not sure exactly where we are, other than because we don't have any documents signed and agreed to yet, we probably have to get the construction document, or at least a right of entry type of document signed before we can do that. But that is in the works. Brad, did you want to say anything?
No, completely agree. And Scott, you were copied when Dennis sent it to me last night, so we finally got the proposal from him. And then Scott has already we've got an address on this site as well. So we completely agree. There needs to be a survey. If you guys didn't ask for one, we would. We've been through this before, and I can give you some horror stories on other airports. But yeah, we're going to want to identify this. We're going to have it as a lease exhibit, so we have exactly how many square foot we're leasing from you. So completely agree with you. This is real estate, and even though it's on an airport, it's still you still got to handle it properly.
Scott, one other thing. Where is the city generating its information, its data for the 7 to 10 cents a square foot? What's supporting that?
So that's based on, remember when we were walking through the fees and stuff that we did here, and we put that document together. There, in that same studies that I use to get those fees out, not everybody publishes them, but there is some publications of lease rates as well for buildings and land and those type of things, and that's where it comes from. We're required by the FAA to do surveys, and it's difficult to do because a lot of airports consider it competition, so they don't necessarily want to divulge everything. So you kind of have to use your network of folks that you know and ask questions. But the short answer is it comes from other airports in the area. Some of them are a little further away, but when I tried to look at airports, I tried to do apples and apples, folks that were like us, which again, I say it all the time, if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. So we're not all alike at all. But I look for airports that have commercial service and have some industrial of some kind. So that's about as close as I can get. And then otherwise, you might take the two separately and look and see what those do. But if you look at 7 cents a square foot, that number is really probably low normal. Where the high end, you go to California, you're looking at 37 cents a square foot. We'll never get anything like that. So that range of 7 to 10 is kind of what we see out there in other airports doing the same kind of thing. And then part of it is an incentivized thing too, that the FAA allows for you to do incentives to tenants that are aeronautical, not for industrial. Industrial should be market value, period. But the FAA allows incentivizing aeronautical businesses.
So who's the decider on the dollar amount? You and NEB?
In the long run, we negotiate, and we're going to bring that to the city council. In the long run, the city council is the decider. We're going to negotiate, and we're going to come to an agreement, and then we're going to justify our agreement to the legal committee first. And if it needs to go for further discussion, it'll be discussed in council. But in the end, it's the city council.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right. You want to just go on into the expanding air center storage area plan,
Okay.
item number 6?
Brad, I appreciate you being on. If you want to join for the stick around for the rest of it, you're certainly welcome. But I surely do appreciate your participation this morning.
Well, really appreciate you guys. Thank you, and we're really looking forward to this relationship. So thank you, everybody. Take care, and thanks, Scott.
You bet. Take care. One more quick thing in my report. I don't know if you can see that all that well, but we've been talking for a long time and talking with AirSale for a long time about cleaning up 66 and 58. So there they are. So we are not done, but was out there this week and took that picture yesterday. So the one on they're labeled on it, like I said, I don't know how well you can see them, but the one on the right is 66, one on the left is 58. So as you can see, 66 in front of that hangar is completely clear, and there's already 3 airplanes parked in that area. There's 2 to the north side past the yellow 777. There's another one. Those are right in front of 66. Then the rest of that area is completely clear. In the picture of 58, you can see the small Airbus that's between, more or less between the two. It's parked just to the left of that picture of 66. And then what you see out there, other than a few engines that are out of the picture to the left, that's what's left of the parts that were out there. So if everybody remembers, and I'm sure everybody does, it was totally full for that whole 5 acres of parts and space. And now we have less than 1 acre of stuff that still needs to be moved, but we're getting there. So I wanted to give AirCell props for getting that done. They're looking at moving airplanes in there. They have had a few in there in front of 66 already, and those have been returned to service and moved to other places and everything that they're doing. So they're looking at putting airplane storage in there, which is what we intended it for.
Okay.
And that is the end of my report. So next item, number 6, expanding the parking storage. Armstrong and I have been working on this diagram that you see, and it's really the first blush of what we might do. But I'll start with the need for that. As I mentioned before, we are running between 500, 510 airplanes. It floats up and down because of the turnover of airplanes coming in to retire and other airplanes going back out to go back into service, being sold, going out for the holidays, and coming back maybe in January. So we'll see those numbers continue to fluctuate. But in terms of the space that we still have available, if we're looking at all narrow bodies, we believe we can put another 100+ airplanes in the space that we currently have without creating any more space. If we have more of the wide bodies come in, that number, of course, is going to trickle down a bit. But in discussions yesterday in our parking committee meeting, basically we don't see an immediate need for expanding the parking area. But we believe that it would be prudent to go ahead with this planning and look at rough order of magnitude dollars, look at where we think that's going to come from, and have this planned, and everybody agree that it would work for the operations that we're doing, and basically put it on the shelf until we have an indication that the need is actually going to arise. Because there's a good chance that we built something like this now, we're going to build a parking lot to nowhere. That we'll build it and there'll be not enough demand to fill it. So that's the idea. And quite honestly, this will probably change. One thing that I talked about yesterday at the parking committee meeting, and then with Bull Johnson afterward, these aircraft, the way they're positioned now, there's various sizes put in there, and what we're looking at doing is not putting gravel over the whole 20, 30, 40 acres, because that's excessive. We don't need to spend money to do that. But basically putting in tug routes in the middle where you can tug the airplanes in, and then basically like in our RV park where you're going to have a spot for each one. And obviously, because you're going to say, okay, this is a spot for a 777, that's what's going to go there, is a 777 or something of that size. And then the narrow bodies, you can put those spots a little closer together. So unlike the rest of the area that we had that is covered with asphalt, and you can kind of position and move around what you need to, this is going to have to be specifically planned for a specific size airplane. So that's kind of what you see on here is the way those were positioned. But one other thought that Armstrong and I have not discussed yet is the durability of putting basically road-based course compressed or millings or something of that nature out there for the tug routes and the parking areas, and then the MROs would put down plating on the heavier aircraft where they need to. But as you pull those in and out of those areas at a 90 degree, you're going to have a lot of trenching and scuffing of that gravel, and so the maintenance on that could be quite intensive. So we may, like I said, this is first blush. We may look at doing more of a herringbone pattern so that you come in at an angle rather than at a 90, so that those tugs can back one into a spot and then pull one right back out into the tug lane. And I think that may reduce our number of airplanes we can put in there. That design right there is around 110 extra airplanes with a mix of wide bodies and narrow bodies. And so I wanted to kind of take a look and have the discussion with Armstrong about the other design where we angle those parking places a little so that we don't have as much wear on the tug routes and therefore as much maintenance and trenching and such. Questions?
Okay. Question? Commissioner?
Scott, if we've talked about this a little bit, I think a couple of months ago, about dust control for coming from those areas. How is that is it being dealt with at all, or is it an issue at all?
Right now, it's really not much of an issue. I mean, it's Randy's shaking his head over there. There's very little going on right now. When we do have dust issues, we'll get out there with our water truck and we'll water it all down. But right now, there's really not a lot going on. Having the airplanes parked out there knocks down a lot of that wind because it makes a windbreak, and so it doesn't pick up as much dust. It was more susceptible to it when it was open than it is now that it's got airplanes on it.
Okay. How long so let's just, I'm curious, how often are any of those planes moved?
I'll let Randy jump in here if he'd like to. I mean, it's probably more than one answer there.
Come up to the microphone, Randy. It works better that way. That way I don't get text messages from the city clerk screaming at me.
Yeah, it's like Scott said, it really is just, it depends on the customer's maintenance program. Some of the aircraft we have to move every 6 months to run the engines. Some we don't. So it just,
So basically, they stay there for quite some time.
they will. Especially the aircraft there's no plan to put them back in service, because a lot of the aircraft out there are going to be retired.
Okay.
Or at least retired with the carrier they're with, so they could be there a year, 2 years, I mean,
Okay.
just depends on the carrier.
I was just curious because when you talk about, the rutting and everything that could take place, if you're not moving anything for 6 months or longer.
No, so we do every 30 days, we have to roll the aircraft either back and forward. We have to turn the wheels a quarter turn every 30 days.
Okay.
But instead of hooking up tow bar and pulling the aircraft back and forth, we basically just jack the aircraft up a little bit, the bogey of the airplane, and just turn the wheel by hand as long as it turns quarter turn. So we've kind of figured that one out, so we don't have this.
Do you have to
nightmare.
do that as far as turning the wheels? Do you have to do that with a plane that's already considered or is out of service?
Yeah, you do. You do.
Really?
You need to maintain it in whatever the manufacturer's maintenance program is. So even though the aircraft may be retired with a carrier, they'll still maintain it for whatever either Boeing or Airbus has told them to do.
Okay.
You have to do that. The aircraft, if you have any plans of the aircraft being released or sold,
Okay.
Even torn down, there's still certain things you have to do to the airplane to keep it in a serviceable condition.
Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, Randy, you've talked about, and Scott's talked about gravel. Are there any metal pads underneath those wheels out there?
So the narrow-body aircraft are light enough where we don't have that issue with them. We've had a couple instances where we've had some of the aircraft, even the narrow bodies that have a little bit too much fuel in them, only because the wind gusts here, some of our customers feel a little bit more comfortable having more fuel on board, so you don't have the problem. We already had one airplane that actually went 360 degrees. So, but for the larger aircraft, the wide-body airplanes, the 767s and up, we have purchased steel plates, and we put them under for the 767s under the mains. We don't necessarily have to put one under the nose because it's kind of a light nose. But for the 777s, larger aircraft, A330s, we put the steel plates under all the gear. There's a company local in town here that's providing that steel plate for us at a reasonable price. So
Great.
So, and we bill that back to the customer. There's an understanding that if we have to move their aircraft into kind of an unapproved area to park the airplane, that we're going to put steel plates under the airplane.
Okay. Do we have any kind of rough order or magnitude on how much it would cost to do some of this?
We don't yet. We've just begun looking at this and kind of looking at the layout, so that'll
Okay.
be the next step, is that we'll get that rough order of magnitude cost. And what we'll be looking at is, just the cost of the material to put it out there, any compacting that we have to do, spreading and planning and that sort of thing. So-
Excuse
so
me,
that-
Scott, if
yeah.
I could just butt in there. So I was in Goodyear, 6 weeks ago or so. And I went and looked at their storage area and kind of what they're doing to the sand out there where they are. Obviously, it's a different soil composition than here. But the company, so there's a company there that does have a, it's, I'm not even sure, it's not really a chemical, but it's an additive that they put to the dirt that kind of causes it to glue together. And they put that down, and they have to come back about every 6 months and recover it. But it's once they get the soil mixed up with this additive in it, it hardens up and it'll hold aircraft, especially narrow bodies. I got the guy's business card that I can pass on his information to you. Just take a
Absolutely.
look at. They have worked in White Sands. They have worked down in White Sands down there on the missile range, doing it for the military. The same thing to park aircraft out there on the sand. So anyway, I can give you that information, and it's just an alternative for you to
Yeah,
take a look
that'd be a good thing to explore.
So we have the city engineer here. He's an expert on all things pavement.
at. Okay.
He'll be the right guy. Does the FAA have any kind of say in this? I mean, if this kind of stuff first, it's not a ramp, it's not a taxiway, will they care?
No, not for our purposes. For the airport side of it, they don't. For Randy's side, for the maintenance and storage and all that, they do
Yeah,
have some things.
I mean,
but-
obviously, we can't do anything that's gonna cause undue stress on the landing gear.
Okay.
Pulling around in dirt or getting the gear, getting sunk in the ground a little bit and having to pull it out, that's the big no-no. I mean, the carriers have a manual that you use in case the aircraft does sink a little bit and you've got to get it out, so we'd rather not go down that road.
Gotcha.
We've had to already, for 3 aircraft we had some sinking on. So far, so good.
The only other thing I'm thinking of is, on the plan is timeline. I mean, if something breaks, and that's one of the things that struck me about this industry, especially these days, things can change quickly. How much time does it
Right.
take from a go decision to actually being able to move airplanes onto it? That, to me, would be something, along with the cost, that needs to be reasonably well known.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's probably going to be one of the more crucial things. So that'll probably require a few more conversations as to how we want to go about that. I mean, my thinking is you could get this, you could even push it all through council and have the project approved and not pull the trigger till you need it.
Yep.
But, and that would be the quickest way in my mind to do it, because you know as well as I do, if you have it ready to go, you're going to need a month and a half, 2 months just to get it through the council process. So
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
That's not a quick turn. So it might be something that we look carefully at. Either getting the city manager authority to make that decision, or however we do that, where we can speed that process up. But yeah, that's one of my biggest concerns as well.
Yeah, you were on the same page there. We do need to make sure this can be done expeditiously.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, counselors, commissioners? All right. Let's go on to item number 7, crunch pad.
Item
Actually
number
have
7,
two.
crunch pad. So I will be honest and tell you that I haven't got anywhere near as much done on this as I would like to. I have been so buried by other things, but I wanted to put together at least a process up there on the slide for you, so you know what we've got to go through. We are, start at the top with the 2 things that we are in progress or have done. We are talking with AirSail about the lease on that. We do not have any agreement at this point, so there's still more work that needs to be done with that. Cost estimates were done by Armstrong. You guys have seen those, and then from there, once we have an agreement with AirSail as to what this is going to look like price-wise, everything else, and they're good to go with it, then we'll have to push all of that through council, both for the project side and the budget side, as well as the approval of the lease. And those can go through parallel at the same time. And then while that's also, once the project is approved, we can go ahead with the task order and the engineering and geotech that will take some time as well. I'm not sure where the invitation to bid will come in there. It probably does not have to wait for all of the engineering to be done, but certainly enough of it to be done, has to be done to put the bid package together. So we may not have to wait for all of the geotech, and Lewis can probably jump in on some of that, so feel free if you want. But, you know, as Mike Garcia had mentioned last meeting, that there is one test that has a 30-day wait period. So you would have the bid, go out to bid, the invitation to bid. That stays open for at least 10 days. We can make it longer, whatever we feel like we need to. We have a bid opening, short period of time for evaluation, award recommendation, and then that goes through the second council process to confirm the award. And then we begin construction. So it's still a long process ahead of us, honestly, is just where I wanted to go. But it's fairly normal to how we do things.
Go ahead.
Question, and maybe your last statement answers it, but it just seems like the process, I mean, we've been having discussions about this for a long, long time. And I think that, you know, are we looking at a year from now before anything's actually even started on the construction? To me, it's just a little bit frustrating that we talk about this, but yet we're not anywhere close to being
No,
there yet.
and I agree, but it's sort of, you know, I've got to make sure that we're meeting air sales needs and that they agree with the price of the lease and all of those things in negotiation before we move forward with the next steps, or we're going to build something that nobody's going to lease.
Well,
So-
and I understand that, but it's not like air sales up in Canada. They're right here.
Right. Well,
Am I not looking at this correctly,
Oh, you're correct.
Randy? I mean,
the guy that I'm talking with is in Coral Gables, so that's,
well,
pick up the phone. So it's still not that hard, you're right.
okay. Well, we've kicked this can down the road for a long time, and, you know, I think we either do it or we just say, hey, you know, it's not on any kind of timetable, but it should be.
Yep.
That's just my thoughts.
Well, I agree with you, Commissioner. You're spot on. We'll keep this on the agenda. I intend to keep it on the agenda. Do you want to talk about what Jen Air's doing, or can you talk about Jen Air's situation?
I'm not sure how much I can share. You guys know they're adding onto their building.
I meant the tear down pad.
Right, well, they're associated, that's why I mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
They're both kind of in the same financing, but they're adding on to their building so they can get a 737 in or a smaller Airbus to work on that. And then they're also building their own tear down pad down in the same area as this one would go. So they are looking at a start on that within the next couple of months. Not sure of the exact start. I mean, I've heard from weeks to a month, so it should be pretty quickly. But they're getting ready to do that. You know, and if AirSale was going to do something like that, it would be the same kind of time frame. We don't have so much to approve there. We basically approve the lease. The lease for Gen Air has already been approved. They're ready to go. So they'll move along. But when we start looking at where we're, you know, what we're doing, it comes to all the questions of where the money comes from, and, you know, all of those things, and getting it approved through all of the different layers of our municipal government. But no, I think we'll move along. I'm hoping we'll see some movement before the next meeting. And I admit, part of it's my fault. I've just been overwhelmed. I just haven't had time to do everything that I need to do. And so I haven't gotten all of it done. Be happy to confess.
True. We had a snowstorm in there, didn't we?
We did have a snowstorm in there. And then I've had some personal things at home where I've had to take some days off, or I couldn't be here to do those things, so trying to arrange those projects.
Well, and I understand all of that. We're talking about, it seems like from a month-to-month basis, it just, you know. So I guess where I'm coming with this, and part of, so I took a picture of that just so I could have an understanding of what's going on. So, I mean, you should throw that up next month,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not here, but you throw that up next month and there's no changes, then to me, there's, you know, we're just, it's rhetoric.
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, there you go.
Commissioner Kunkel?
So Riley's correct in his analysis of this, and I think everybody agrees with it, even you, Scott, agree with it. It's just going on and on and on. And it's kind of I mean, it's not a huge project, it's not inexpensive, but it had to have been 6 months ago when we were talking to Air Sale, and we said, you know, you got to stop crunching up airplanes there by, I think we said the 1st of December, and then the next month we moved it to the 1st of January, and now we're within 2 weeks of the 1st of December. So if there isn't, at least in my experience, if there isn't a timeline to make something happen, it just doesn't appear to happen. And this seems to be that exact project. Now, as long as Air Sale's okay, as long as they can still keep doing what they need to do, they could probably care less.
Right.
Because it's probably more convenient for them where they are now.
Right.
But it just doesn't seem to me to be the way to conduct a project. Like maybe the city staff ought to find somebody to go work this if you don't have time to work it.
Yeah. And once
Just a
I
thought.
have the negotiations agreed to by Air Sale, I'm going to turn most of this over to Armstrong, and so they'll be running with the project, with the bidding and all of that stuff. So it should pick up a lot faster then.
Okay, I guess we'll see.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's move on to Hangar 84.
So we've kept you guys updated the last few months with this since we put in this application. We have been contacted by the EDA last week through an email that they, I guess it was actually
This
Monday,
week.
wasn't it? Monday or Tuesday?
It's like Monday.
Yeah, I was thinking,
Yeah.
been a long week.
It has,
But at any rate, we have been contacted by EDA, and we do not have an agreement for us to process yet, but they're telling us that the committee met last week, and we should be getting a agreement to sign for $2 million. So that's not the $3 million that we applied for, but it certainly isn't chump change either. So the challenge for us now is to start looking where we're going to cobble together the rest of the money for that project. But we do have a good start.
yes, we have a start,
And we have a challenge.
and we have a challenge. The estimated total cost for the doghouse, I think, was 6.5.
Yeah,
seven.
if you include the ramp work and everything, we're somewhere in the 5 to 6.5 range, and it depends on, right now, we're still at the rough order of magnitude estimate, where some of that might come down once we start sharpening the pencil. But at this point, no one's willing to do that because it's not a real project yet. So I think once we accept this grant and that's real, I believe that's going to change things quite a bit.
One of the things that we've talked about is applying or trying to get the MAP money for the terminal parking lot reallocated, so to speak, to this project. We were turned down flat by the FAA. Scott and I talked about this, and I held off pushing harder or further up the chain until we see if we actually got the EDA grant. Now that we have the EDA grant, I'm going to try and appeal again to higher authorities to try and free up that $2 million. That would get us a long ways there. We've talked to CAVU about them putting some skin in the game. Those negotiations are ongoing. And I know Mr. Fuentes has been looking at different funding options, so we're trying to identify where we can get the additional money from for this this project. I mean, to me, the key thing is this is our oldest large hangar, built 1945. It's kind of like what we did with the 1083, the paint hangar, is do the renovations and expansions and upgrades to make it a fully marketable asset, because right now it's very limited. And correct me if I get any of this wrong, Scott, if I misstated it, or
No, that's it. The use of it is limited right now because of tail height. Width-wise, I think you could get close to getting a 767 in there, but there's no way you're getting that tail in there.
Yep. So this would make it a 767 accommodating hangar, and we don't know all the details about electrical and fire suppression, but those will come into play.
Right.
So anyway, it's not where I'd hoped we were. Originally, we were hoping to get a $5 million grant. That was way back in May, June timeframe. And so I'll be candid with you, I'm a little bit frustrated we don't have more than 2, but 2 is better than nothing. And this is I think the best way to put it is a worthy project.
Yeah, it is a worthy project for sure. It'll be a big boost to what CABU can do in that building, and then a big value addition to our hangar that we'll own forever. So whether CABU's there or someone else, it'll be a much more useful hangar with that configuration. And then, I think that now that we have the base grant of $2 million out of EDA, I believe that's going to be incentive for some of the other ideas that we've talked about for funding that really were on hold, waiting to see if we got this grant. And so now we can talk a little more seriously about that funding.
Okay. Other questions, comments? If anybody has any ideas or has an extra $3 million laying around, we'd be happy to discuss terms.
Like we used to tell our parents all the time when we were kids, just write a check.
Just write a check.
Just write a check.
I got a pen. Give me a checkbook. All right. Item number 9.
Item number 9 we put on when we built the agenda, hoping we would get something back from FAA before this meeting. and so really there's not a lot to talk about there. Juan's here. I don't know if you've heard anything else since we talked yesterday. So really the update on the old municipal airport is there's not much of an update. I'll just kind of touch on what we've already done. You guys know we went through the whole report that we delivered to FAA. We've had a lot of back and forth with them over the last year. Last thing they asked us for was an appraisal. We got that, and we've delivered it to them, and we're just waiting on their process. And we've given them a little time. They've had it now 3-4 weeks maybe, yeah. And so we're giving them a little time to process, and in the next few weeks we'll be a little more forceful with them and try to go back and pull an answer out of them. My only concern is all my years in the FAA is, man, if we don't do it before December, we might as well wait till January, because nothing happens in December at the FAA. So that's where we are. We're waiting on them to give us some answer.
Do you or Mr. Fuentes want to kind of remind us what we're accomplishing with this? You want to jump up there? Because this is another one of these never-ending stories.
It is.
Yeah, so the goal obviously was to get a full release from the FAA on the old municipal airport property based on a resolution that was adopted many years ago when the property was transferred over to the city. We feel the city has already met their obligation under that resolution, so there is a process. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of development on that property of the old municipal airport, so we want to be able to get a full release so that we can proceed forward with other city plans with that property. And as Scott stated, I think we provided them the last piece of information, and we'll just give them a little bit more time, and then we'll start being a bug in their ear to get an update from them.
Because right now, if I'm not mistaken, any kind of, if we were to sell any property out there, that revenue has to go into the airport enterprise fund as opposed to the general fund, even though any improvements are paid for out of general fund or water fund. Like we ran the water line north on what would be Nevada water sewer, if I'm not mistaken, and that was funded out of the water. Out of the water maintenance. Yeah, so the idea is to sever this encumbrance with the air center, because it really hasn't functioned in any way, shape, or form as an airport in 50-something
Yeah,
years.
Exactly.
Well, fair enough. Okay. Well, we don't have any actionable items today, which is fine, but we do have, I think, a lot of things that we want to talk about in December. I've got a list. I'm going to throw this out and see what you guys think. Number one is continuing on the tear down pad. Let's see where we can make some progress there, because I think Commissioner Armstrong and Commissioner Kunkel are correct. There are some concerns. The large hangar project, maybe we could have Western in person, and hopefully by that time we will have more meat. We have not talked about this, but Scott and I have visited a little bit. The master plan for the Air Center was adopted in 2012 and was worked on, if I remember right, in 2011. So we're coming up on the 10-year point.
Correct.
And that would mean discussing what does a new master plan look like, what was accomplished in the last one, what was done right, what wasn't done right. I will share my thoughts. I think going through the master plan, which I've done recently, maybe we can get a copy of it or email it out to everybody so you can look at it. I think it was very prophetic on the runways, taxiways, ramp, all those identified projects that needed to be done and were done rather well. It was a little bit, more than a little bit off on projected economic activity, but that's a darker crystal ball.
Right.
But I would like this group to be the driving team for the new master plan. And that's part of the discussion I want to have. I mean, this group has done, I think, an excellent job on the ordinance work, the minimum standards, that type of stuff. I think the master plan is exactly the same type of thing that this body would be good at. And so we need to start considering that. We've not talked about this in a while, and that's Air Center staffing. Where are we at? I know you have a job position out open right now. You have applications for property manager.
I do. The property manager is still open, and I've gotten several applications. Need to do interviews. The deputy director position, I don't think it's quite open yet, but if it is, it just did, because we did
Right.
the paperwork for that. So it's either just opened or it isn't quite yet. But so I haven't seen the applications on it yet.
I'm not sure this would be appropriate, and so I'm open to whether or not we do this, but I was thinking a discussion about the Sky situation. They did a launch.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as successful as they wanted. What do we know about their future plans? What do they know about their future plans? May be a better topic, but
So my discussion with them a few days after, I kind of gave them a week or so to digest their launch. I don't know exactly what they plan in terms of, and I'm not sure if they have got all that ironed out either. I'm not sure what they plan in terms of where they might do manufacturing once they have a successful flight and a successful vehicle. I've heard some rumors that they have considered other places, so it might not be Roswell. But what they have steadily told me is that building that they have out there is their research and development building, period. And they intend to stay there and do the research and development there all along. So the next potential window for another launch for them is May, and then again in September, October. So, you know, they've got a lot of data to work through after this event that they had and see what went right, see what went wrong, and make adjustments.
So do you folks want to see if somebody from Sky will share with us what, I mean, this is just my idea. I'm not saying this is what we need to do.
I'm not sure, I mean, if they're committed to staying as far as this facility, as their research and development, you said?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, what are we gonna glean from them that maybe we don't already know?
I don't know.
Just any future plans for where, if they're willing to tell you anything yet, at this point, it may still be proprietary, but if they have any ideas about, you know, where the manufacturing site might be. But they are committed to being a New Mexico business. I mean, their headquarters are in the old Google building at Moriarty Airport, so that's their home. This building and this facility is used for research and development, and they've looked at a lot of different factors for where they might have their manufacturing, and like I said, I'm not sure they've decided yet, but I think they have some ideas, and Roswell, at least at first, was one of them, but I'm not sure that it is the top one now.
Okay. Well, I don't see a lot of enthusiasm, so let's go ahead and drop that off the list. And then I was going to ask, oh,
Oops.
How about an update on the Navy? They still coming in?
ooh,
I haven't heard anything else yet from them. The last I heard was it was dependent on Sinatra approving the budget. It was a go other than that. So I'll probably touch base with them tomorrow. I've got a couple of other items I need to touch base with them anyway, so.
let's put that on the December.
I didn't hear Jim's question. What was the question?
He was asking about the Navy. I had announced last
Okay.
month that the Navy will be coming January, end of January through middle of April.
Okay.
So that's still on, as far as I know. There's not been any change.
All right. I was going to ask, can we continue with the Gen Air projects? Maybe Gen Air could come and talk to us about it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the list I've got. So I got Navy, tear down pad, large hangar master plan, air center staffing, Gen Air projects. Anything else you want
You better
Dive
not, or
into?
you all gonna be here until 3 o'clock.
to? Depends.
It's,
This is a better, this,
I'm not gonna be here, so.
this
you
this
can
group's a lot easier
pack
than my
as much you
council.
want in.
I'll tell you that much.
yeah, the master plan could take quite a while. I mean, we're obviously not going to finish the whole thing in one meeting, but.
No. We're just going to talk about the concept. I don't want to even
Yeah,
try to get into the master
exactly.
plan.
That's kind of what I'm thinking is at this point, and I'll discuss it with Armstrong, but at this point, I'm thinking probably an introduction to what the master plan is.
Yeah.
And does, why it's required by FAA and all
Yeah.
of those things.
Master Plan 101.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
that's what I meant.
And that would be a good start, and then we can kind of start looking at, I think it's 2012 that we've got it on our CIP to actually do it. I'm not 2012, 2022. Sorry, I'm backing up. When we have it on our CIP to actually do it. So we've got a little time to work that out, but we should start.
I agree. All right. Other questions? All right, public participation. Randy, anything else you want to add for us? Appreciate you coming, really do. Appreciate you jumping in there. All right, anybody else? Mr. Nahar, anything? Okay, come on down.
Just a comment as far as the use of the street department for the parking and stuff. We do try to help out. They are being pulled, in my opinion, more than normal, and that does take away from the streets and alley maintenance. And your parking venture is income, and the street department road fund has been cut severely. So I would just like to say, we do like to help out, but we don't want to help out as much.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Kunkel?
By, by way of announcement, this is my last meeting.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Am I getting a formal written letter to that effect? Okay. Fair enough. So you will not serve out the rest of your term? Okay, fair enough. Thank you for sharing. Anything else, commissioners? All right, fair enough. Yeah, I've got 11:11, and we are adjourned.